folks, how you doing? Today I want to talk to you a little bit about three things that I don't think we talk about enough. Three things that when you watch YouTube videos, when you read books and learn theory and all the rest of it, you're not necessarily being told, but they're three things that are absolutely essential if you want to get good at playing jazz, or in fact any kind of music. And how I really arrived at these three things, apart from just practicing and playing a lot, is transcribing solos from some of the great players. And there's three things that I've noticed from transcribing solos, and they're nothing to do with learning scales, learning arpeggios, learning theory, okay? You have to have all of that stuff. So I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, you know your diatonic arpeggios in certain keys, and you know your scales, and you know your fretboard. You have to know this stuff. But beyond that, there's something else. There are three other things. And all of these three things that I'm going to talk about link to a mindset. It's not just what you know, but it's actually how you apply it and how you approach soloing from a mental perspective, how you think about it, okay? So I'm going to give you some concrete examples here, and I'm going to show you what I mean on the guitar, but let me just tell you what I think those three things are. The first thing that I think you need to know that you're not necessarily going to learn from watching loads of YouTube videos and learning loads of scales and arpeggios is that the great players very, very often keep it very simple, okay? And when we listen to the great players, it's tempting to think, oh, they've got all these skills. It must be so complicated what they're doing. But if you sit down and you transcribe the solos of some of these brilliant players, Grant Green, Miles Davis, Kenny Burrell, these guys often are playing really quite simple lines, but they're doing it in a way that's just so effective and powerful, and it really, really swings. And so one of the ways I think to get much, much better at playing is to actually kind of, once you know all the theory and you know all the hard stuff and you know all of these different scales that you can apply, is actually then focus on just kind of chipping away and getting your phrasing down to its bare minimum where it can still sound really, really good, but without all the complexity. And I think that makes you a much, much better player. That's my opinion anyway. The second thing that I think you need to know that's really, really important is that even though we need to know all of these different arpeggios and how we connect them all and all, etc., one of the things that I think some of the great players do is they think in phrases, they think in small phrases, and then they think about how to join those phrases together, as opposed to thinking, I'm just going to play one long string of notes over everything. And the third thing, and this is more about the physicality of the fretboard, is to actually think in terms of pockets of notes. So if I'm soloing over, All the Things You Are, I know that I can solo over the A section from here to here, and I've got these pockets of notes. And as you get more confident, you can start to expand and you can start to, join sections of the fretboard up. But certainly when you sort of approaching a standard, or if you're not that confident, it's a good idea to just think in terms of pockets of notes. So that's the three things. Keep it simple, think in phrases, think in terms of pockets of notes and areas, small areas where I can work, where I can build those phrases. So we're going to take a look at that. At the start of this video, you probably recognize from the last bit of the thing that I was improvising over that was on Green Dolphin Street, and I was playing that in the key of C major. And I'm going to show you what I mean by these three things, applying it to On Green Dolphin Street. If we think about On Green Dolphin Street, the first two chords we've got a C major 7 and we've got C minor 7. Now, if I know my C major and C minor arpeggios all over the fretboard, then I think, okay, well, I can just jump in and go for it. But actually, let's just kind of zone it down and keep it a bit more focused. So for the first pass at the A section, I'm going to keep things quite simple. I'm going to play my C over my C major 7 and my C minor 7, just on frets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I've got these two arpeggios. Okay, very close together. And there's very few notes that I can't actually play. I'm just going to, for the purpose of showing you what I mean by that, I'm just going to play some notes here. I'm not playing a lick or anything. But if I think I'm going to start on the third of my C major 7 and work backwards, I can play pretty much every note in this space. Okay? And I can do the same for my C minor 7. Okay, so there's very little that I can't play here. So it's a case more of just let's stay in this area and let's kind of just keep it nice and simple. So I'm going to just play a phrase now over the C major 7, just on 3 strings, strings 2, 3, and 4, and show you what I mean. I'm going to play a nice simple phrase, nothing clever, but you'll see what I mean, that it can still sound pretty good. So you can hear from that I've kept that really, really simple. There's nothing clever there at all, but it's a nice simple phrase that's going to work nicely over the C major 7 chord. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play virtually the same phrase, just with the minor third over and the minor 7th over the minor chord. So we'll join those together and let's see how that sounds. So you can hear there that what I was doing was not at all complicated, and when we are doing this at home, I'm not talking about when you're playing with people, when you're actually jamming or anything, but when you're in the woodshed, when you're just sitting at home practicing, what you want to do is, when you're learning a jazz standard or messing with a jazz standard, identify that pocket of notes. So I know I've got frets like 3, 4, 5 here, strings 4, 3, 2, where I can play these, you know. So I know I've got those frets to mess with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice phrasing on those frets, on those strings with those notes. But I'm just going to practice different sort of takes on the phrases. So I might go, you know, the phrase that I just played, I think it was something like... something like that. Next time I might... So I'm just using a bit of chromaticism to target the third of those two phrases at the start of the phrase. Just practicing like that and just listening back, recording that as well, recording your phrasing and listening back to it is really going to build confidence. It's really going to make a difference. So we know that we've got this area that we can work in. And then we've also got, in these same 5 frets, we've also got the notes of our next 2 chords, which is our D7 and our D flat major 7. We've got the notes for the D7 here. And we've got the notes for the D flat major 7 here. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we've got those notes here that we can mess around with. So we could also play something, again, very simple over those. You know, we could play nice and simple. Then back to the third of our C when we get back to our C. So let's just hear that now. Again, very, very simple phrasing. Let's just hear all of that together. So again, nothing particularly complicated there. All I was playing over the D7 and the D flat major 7 was just this, pretty much a triad. This encourages a very vertical style of playing, so you need to be aware of that. But once you start to get confident in that area, what you can then do is you can start to expand it and think, okay, well, I know I can play this. I know where all of my notes are that I need to hit within frets like 1 to 5. So I'm really confident now playing over that part of the A section, or that A section. So now I'm going to just expand it and I'm going to try and move it out a little bit. And once you start messing around, you can figure out, well, we've got our D7 arpeggio here, and we've got our D flat major 7 arpeggio here. So we can start to move up and down the fretboard and expand these pockets. So now we're sort of focusing on, where are we, like fret 5 to about fret 9, okay? So we can move up now. So at this point we can start to sort of move that up, and let's just hear how that sounds. So again, you can hear I'm now expanding out and I'm moving up the fretboard, and then I find myself in another part of the fretboard. So maybe I could concentrate on playing the next sort of pass of the next part of the A section up here on these frets. So the advice that I would give you, if you're sort of coming to these standards and you're sort of sitting there thinking, well, I know all this information, I know all these arpeggios, I know all these scales, how do I make it swing, how do I phrase it, etc., etc., is to just take a small section of a jazz standard, a small section of the fretboard, and just try and work on your phrasing, just maybe over 2 chords, 3 strings, and just practice different ways of phrasing it, different ways of coming at it, chromatic enclosures perhaps on one phrase, and then try that same phrase without the chromatic enclosures, or starting with an approach tone and then without the approach tone, maybe extending the phrase over into the next bar as opposed to finishing it neatly like I was, if you want to sort of make it into more of a sort of bebop sort of style. But remember the four things, the three things rather. Keep it simple. I'm overcomplicating it with the fourth thing. Keep it simple. Focus on phrases. Think about them as individual phrases to start with, and worry about connecting them when you start to feel confident in that area of the fretboard. And finally, think in pockets, at least initially. Once you start to understand, well, I know this pocket of the fretboard, and I know that all of my C major and all of my C minor is here. And that's going to help you with other standards as well, where those chords come up. Once you start to feel confident there, you can then start to expand it out, and you can start to play horizontally as well as vertically, because we don't want to be restricting ourselves to just playing vertically all the time. But I think certainly to start with, this sort of approach helps. I hope that's been useful, guys. If it has, if you like this sort of thing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It makes sense. Until next time, keep making music.